today begins a stewardship series for us, and we're having a little fun with it. This is our 2020 because we're looking for the next year and talking about stewardship, and we're going with the theme called Mission Possible. Now, some of you may have some reference point. Anybody recognize that? Yeah? How many people under 20 recognize it? I said under 20. All right. For those of us who are a little bit older, this is a TV series that was from 1966 to 1973 called Mission Impossible. And it was on, I believe, CBS. With that, and you see some of the cast, and that changed over those years in different ways. Anybody recognize the guy on the far right? That's Leonard Nimoy. That's Spock from Star Trek. And so, read that. And then probably more famously among some of you is this guy, Peter Graves, as Mr. Jim Phelps. And he was the leader of the mission, the MI team. And just a Minnesota trivia. Anybody have any trivia on that? Yeah,
He graduated from South High.
From South High, yes. That is correct, yes. Any other trivia on that?
Brothers James Arnett.
Yeah.
Brothers James, the older brothers, James Arnett, who played Gunsmoke. Yeah. He's everyone under 40 is going, huh? Yeah. One last one, and this is for Mr. Essig there. You know, piece of Minnesota trivia for Mr. Graves, Peter Graves. He was a Golden Gopher, University of Minnesota. That's right, go Gophers. Yeah. Well, no extra credit for that for confirmation. Sorry. Well, as this is a theme, Mission Possible, Mission Impossible, that has transitioned generations over time. Because it has been in since 1996 to 2018, which is a good deal of time, that Tom Cruise has played the character of Ethan Hunt that replaced Jim Phelps as the leader of the MI team, the Mission Impossible team, as they go up and solve that. And so as our top-notch stewardship team began to think about how it is that we can use this and to work this out into a stewardship series for us called Mission Possible, and because it's not impossible, we had to do some considerations. And the first of all was how do you possibly capture the person of Tom Cruise within our stewardship campaign here at Peace? And so we gave a great deal of thought to it, and the only way to come up with that, of course, is in typecasting, where you try to find the person who looks very similar and has a lot. So Mission Possible, we changed the name of the movie to Giving Protocol. And so that was, but you have to understand we have a very, very limited budget. In fact, the truth of the matter is there's no budget. So, well, with that too, you had to do your own stunts in this regard, and so you have to be in shape, you have to have the body for it, and so we're working on that. We're not going to have it there yet. And then, of course, you take risks. Tom Cruise has actually been hurt in some of the movies because he does his own stunts with that, and so there you go. This movie we were going to call Mission Possible Road Church. And so that's kind of our brainstorming session that we had to get us going with that. Yeah, right, Amy? Emily? I mean, you're close to my, not anywhere near it, am I? All right. So, back to the way the series was. The series, whether it's the movie or the TV series, always began in the same way. You had the mission set up for that, and in the old days, they opened up a briefcase, they took out a file folder, they played a tape recorder, and for you younger kids, a tape recorder is... Oh, okay, you got it. And then the mission would be on there, and it would end, your mission should you choose to accept it. That was the phrase that we want to capture here for all of us as we look at our mission and what it is that we have to do. Your mission should you choose to accept it. Maybe we should all say it together. Your mission should you choose to accept it. There you go. And then, of course, the whole thing went up in smoke, but we don't have any special effects budget, so we'll do that. Your mission should you choose to accept it. Well, often when we're in these situations, we say something more like, well, we can't do this. That's impossible. How can we possibly think about doing something like that? We don't have enough space around here to do something like that. Or there's not enough volunteers. We'll never be able to do that. That's impossible. Or there's no budget for that at all. That is absolutely impossible. And then, of course, the seven last words of Lutherans, we have never done it that way before. And others as well, I'm guessing, right? So often our attitude, our mindset goes right to, we can't do it. There's no way to do it. It's impossible. Well, if you go to the Scriptures and you start reading some of the Bible stories that are in there, in the Old Testament as a place to begin, there's all kinds of stories about where something seemed absolutely impossible and turned out to be quite possible because of what God can do. Take the story of Noah, for instance. I don't know how many of you remember the old Bill Cosby Noah. Nobody. It was on a record. Nobody remembers that. Okay. So Noah had to build this giant ark, and he had to make it out of gopher wood. He had to do all this kind of stuff, and he kept telling God, I can't do this. I can't do this. And he kept working at it. God made it possible and saved the people and Noah and all the animals. Moses is tending sheep. He got out of Egypt, and God says to him in the burning bush, you go back. I'm sending you on a mission back to Egypt to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And when he said that, Moses says, that's impossible, Lord. I can't do that. I can't speak very well. Pharaoh is going to look at me and kill me and all these things. And God made it possible for Moses to go back to Egypt and get the people out of Israel and free them. Think about David, if you would. King David at the time, but back when he was a shepherd boy. And there he was out on the battlefield helping his brothers there, and all of a sudden this big giant of a warrior came out, all in armor, the hugest person that he'd ever seen, named Goliath. And with that, David went up against him, an impossible feat, but only had a sling and a few stones. The impossible became possible, right? And that comes to our Bible verse, our theme Bible verse for the stewardship series. Jesus looked at them and said, with people this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. And that needs to be our mindset, whether it's in a committee meeting or within a relationship or within our work or at our homes or wherever it is. That it may seem impossible for us as a human being, as a person, or as a church or organization, but with God, all things are possible. We go to Matthew's Gospel for the mission. So what's our mission? Should we choose to accept it? Matthew 25 talks about how it is when you've done this for the least of these, you've done this for me. When you've fed the hungry, when you've clothed the naked, when you've visited the sick. That's our mission that Jesus has given us to do. Matthew 28 is, go therefore and make disciples of all nations and baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teach them all that I have taught you. That is our mission that He has set before us. And you remember the last 4 weeks of time as we've spent in September talking about how it is that you are gifted spiritually, how it is that you have these spiritual gifts to use to serve. That's how God has wired you up and made you to be. And so we pick up the towel and the bowl and we do as Jesus taught us to do, and that is serve others. We are gifted to serve. That's our mission. That's what we are sent out on. Well, I have to imagine, you talk to some of the people who are the charter members here at this church. There was meetings held, and there was prayer held, and there was all kinds of discussion. And how is it? could this church even be possible? And I'm sure at a time it seemed like this was an impossible thing, but together with God's help in this church became a real possibility, and now is what it is today because of faith in that promise that the impossible can be possible. And lastly, I'll point this out to you because this is one that just touched my heart, and I know you've all seen it on the news. But there's this horrible trial for a Dallas police officer, Amber Guyger. And with that, she had shot the person, and there's all kinds of details with it. But the trial came out, and the verdict was handed out. And the brother of the person who had been shot and killed comes out and says that he forgives her. He forgives her. And it wasn't just that words across the courtroom, but there came a point where they were allowed to go and hug each other. And how it was that Jesus was the reason for that forgiveness. You see, that would seemingly be impossible in a world like ours. But here it is right before us, that God made something possible that was impossible. Forgiveness, right, amongst us. And who doesn't need that in this day and age? Jesus looked at them and said, with people this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Well, that last phrase comes out, and it's to you, right? Your mission, should you choose to accept it, what you're going to do about it, we'll be exploring in the next weeks to come. And with that, we want to invite you to begin to consider how it is you'll support the mission here at Peace with your faith promise. Those will be available to you next weekend here at church. And we'll be handing those out in the Commons and have a packet of information for you. And we'll all get together on the 27th and share that gift. This mission that we have been called to do and gifted for is one that is definitely possible. Amen? Let's stand. We're going to sing together. My faith looks up to you.